I'm very excited actually to have Juliette here, albeit remotely, to give this guest lecture from Signify. She will tell a little bit more about that, but she's the head of sustainability reporting for the company. And as maybe a short introduction, I was finishing a book this weekend about thinking in systems. And I was fascinated by one case from the Netherlands that I was saying there was an area in Amsterdam in which the buildings were all built at the same time, all the same. And the only difference between buildings was that the number were having the energy meter in the basement, and another number of buildings were having in the entrance. And then after a few times, they were noticing that those that were having the energy meter in the entrance, those families were consuming 30% energy less than the others. And then there was no difference in the type of family, the type of houses, etc., etc. That was the only difference. And the reason for that was giving feedback. So that by seeing regularly how much energy they were consuming, they were led implicitly to consume less. And this was for me an interesting case that I use, if Juliette allows me to introduce her, because I think reporting is more powerful than we think. And with that, I leave you the words to you.
Thank you, Patricia. And good morning, everybody. And I'm sorry I'm not in person. I hope that you can hear me well. And I'm sure you can see well the screen. So what we wanted to share with you today is a bit of a concrete example of how the SDGs, the Sustainable Global Challenges, are impacting not only society, but also corporate, and how corporate can play a role in increasing positive change and positive impact. And so I have a presentation today about Signify, about our sustainability program, our company strategy, and you will see that across the presentation, you will see that the Sustainable Development Goals, something that was presented by Philippe previously, are completely intertwined with everything that we do at Signify. And I will so tell you a bit more about that, our corporate strategy, our sustainability program, and then how we report against. And as Patricia was mentioning, reporting, if you can't manage, you can't, if you can't measure, you can't manage. It's a famous quote about reporting and the strategic importance of measuring your impact. So I don't know if you know who is Signify. Let me try to pass the slide, but you probably know Philips and Philips Lighting. Actually, in 2015, Philips Lighting became a separate entity. We did an IPO and we separated from our mother company, which was Philips. And in 2016, we changed our name from Philips Lighting to Signify. And so you know our product, you know the Philips bulb, but we have many other brands. So Philips is one of the brands of Signify, and we are the world leader in lighting. And what we do is like we provide high quality, energy efficient lighting products. So from conventional lighting, we really shifted to LED, and now the next wave is to connected LED, where lighting become a new way of communicating. And just to give you a bit of numbers, so you understand a bit who we are in terms of size, we are really a big company in the sense that we are listed. We have 6.9 billion sales in 2021, at the end of 2021. And 75% of our sales is directed to professionals, so B2B, and 25% then to consumers. So you might know our Philips Hue lamps, but also with brands that are more for consumer, generally speaking. We are truly a global company because we are like really, you see 74 countries, our workforce is global, so does our manufacturing sites. And it's quite important when we talk about sustainability programs and reporting, because we cover a lot of different regions, which has each of them have their own infrastructure and their own challenges when we talked about sustainability. One important fact that we want to share is that we are a sustainability leader, and we became carbon neutral in our operation already in 2020. And I want just to spend one slide on this achievement to tell you a bit more about what do we mean. But first thing first, I want to tell you a bit more. Like, so I told you that we became a separate entity in 2015, and at that time, it was a moment to think about for ourselves, what do we want to achieve in terms of sustainability? Philips has been a very long leader in sustainability and in many things, and now it was a time for us to draft for ourselves what would be our ambitions. And already back in 2015, ambition was quite high, so we already back then decided that we wanted to become carbon neutral by the end of 2020, among many other achievements. Ambitions. And what you can see on this slide, and I'm not going to cover them all, but it's basically all our achievement by the end of 2020, by the end of our first Brighter Lives, Better World, which is the name of our program, sustainability program. And for instance, we focused on really how we operate, so being carbon neutral in operation, but also as a manufacturing site, sending zero waste to landfill, so really focusing on recycling, and when we cannot, incinerating, and also on what we sell. So the focus was really to how can we make sure that 80% of our revenues come from sustainable product systems or services. And we have our own definitions behind that, and I can explain if there is questions, but that was really a bit the two angle. And at the end of 2020, we achieved or overachieved all our ambitions, which was a great first sustainability program. And we said that we were a sustainability leader because we think we are, but also because others are letting us know. So for instance, you saw on the bottom, some of the rating agencies, not all. I don't know if you're familiar with the rating agencies, but basically they are analysts that assess our environmental, social, and governance, so ESG performance, and provide, depending on the rating, it can provide a score, it can provide a scorecard, a risk profile, and all of that is used by investors to make their decisions. And from all of the main major ratings, we've been considered as in top 1%, top 1, top 2. And that is give us confidence that we're doing the right thing. I mentioned about carbon neutrality, and I want to spend one slide on that because there is a lot of things happening and conversation at the global scale about net zero and some claims and greenwashing. And one thing that we do at Signify is that we walk the talk. And so since 2010, actually we reduced by 70% our emissions from operations. And you can see that we had hundreds of different initiatives across the organization to really truly reduce our emission, and we are continuing reducing these emissions. What we do is like, in order to achieve this commitment, we also shifted to 100% renewable electricity. And for that, we invested massively in what we call virtual purchase, power purchase agreement. So we buy farms, like for instance wind farms, and so that can help us sourcing renewably, but also helping, for instance, the latest biggest was in Poland. So Poland, that is mainly based on coal, as you may know, in terms of energy, really shifting them to greener the grid as well. So there is a benefit also on that level. But we are a manufacturing company, so there is some emissions that we cannot reduce, because for instance, we have glass oven that emit, and for that we worked with South Pole, is our current partner, to offset this part of these emissions to become and reach carbon neutrality. Moving on, I think at the end of 2020, or already in 2019, we were thinking like, okay, so we are on track, we are going to achieve our target by the end of 2020. What is the next challenge for us? And this is at that moment that the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, became very relevant, because as you understood from the previous presentation, they are really setting the framework in which everybody, governments, but also for the first time corporate, were called upon contributing to these goals need to take into consideration. And so there won't be a corporate that could be viable in the next 10, 15 years without contributing positively to solving some of those 16 challenges. So we look into this. We look also at the major global trends that we would see and like that would be relevant for us to consider to define a new corporate strategy. Like, for instance, well, climate change is relevant for any industry, let's be honest. Resource scarcity, but also demographic change. And when you look at cities, there will be more and more people in cities, but at the same time, we need to be more and more energy efficient. So how can light can play a role there? So a lot of things happening and trying to define a bit where we want it to be in the next years. And one thing you see on this screen, which is important, is our purpose. So we have defined already in 2015, in the beginning of the company, a purpose. And you can see that our purpose is to unlock the extraordinary potential of light for brighter lives and a better world. And Brighter Life, Better World is our sustainability program, and it's really intersect to our purpose. And so I'm saying that because what comes next is like already our chief executive officer, our CFO, all are the leadership team. We're really like aware that sustainability needs to be is already part of our purpose. How can we strengthen a bit even further our commitment to sustainability? And so in 2019, we were not only revising our sustainability program, but defining a new company strategy. And that you can see on the left side, this kind of, we call it the 5 frontier onion. You see 5 frontiers here, and this is our corporate strategy. Everything that we do relate to this visual. The first frontier is being customer centric, that everything that we do needs to be customer focused. We need to propose differentiated offer. And the third frontier that you see is growth for sustainability. So we don't want to, I mean, of course, we want a sustainable growth. We want to continue to be profitable, but everything that we do in terms of innovation, solutions, or our portfolio need to contribute to sustainability. And this is a major shift for us, but for other in the industry as well. And I'm going to expand a bit on this growth for sustainability in a minute. Then you can see another layer called digitalization, also relevant for your class, I believe. I will focus a bit on the link between digitalization and sustainability with some case studies at the end of this presentation. And then the last layer, great place to work. This is basically about our people, our suppliers, our partners. How do we want to lead with the people we work with? And so growth for sustainability, when we look at it, and when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals that you can really see on the right hand of this slide, there is few things that we want to focus on. The first one is climate action, contributing to SDG 13, climate action, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. The second big environmental focus is circular economy. How can we as a company contribute to the shift to the transition to a circular economy? When we look at the more social part of our program, so Brighter Lives, there is one big pillar of our sustainability program that you can see on the right that will be focusing on all the lighting product system and services that can contribute to create brighter lives. So we look at food availability, safety and security, and health and well-being. And the last pillar, great place to work, really contribute to SDG number 8. And in the next slide, I want to go through a bit like what concretely we have set for ourselves. The major ambition of this sustainability program called Brighter Life, Better World 2025 is to double our positive impact. So I presented to you the previous program that was mainly focusing on ourselves. So how can we operate sustainably? How can we offer products that can contribute or can be sustainable? And achieving carbon neutrality in 2020, we're like, okay, what's next? And with this new program, we really wanted to focus on being more part of an ecosystem and understanding or having a program that would be across our entire value chain. And so that was really the red thread across our doubling our impact is like, it's not only us, it has to be enabling others to increase their positive impact. And so when we look at the first pillar, which is climate action, our ambition was really to double the pace in which we achieve the 1.5-degree Paris Agreement scenario. I'm going to have one slide to explain you a bit this one in details because it might be a bit difficult to grasp at first. But that's basically a commitment that is not only in our operation, but also across the value chain. So how can we decrease emissions to our consumer? And how can we reduce emissions also at our suppliers? So really supporting across the board. And so we have 4 doubling commitments in the theme of our doubling our positive impact. The first one I just mentioned. The second one is to double the percentage of revenue coming from circular portfolio. The third one is double our Brighter Lives revenue. So it's all the revenue contributing to food availability, safety and security, health and well-being. And the last one, doubling our percentage of women in leadership positions. Why this one? I'm just going to tell you a few 2 minutes about this one. We really wanted to take a stand when we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has become even beyond diversity or women in leadership, is about culture. And we really wanted to change and to be contributing to a change of culture. And we really focus on women in leadership because that was a higher rank. First, because this is when we look at setting up a program, you look at your baseline, and the baseline was very low, 17% of women in leadership. That is not what we want. So we really look at that. And by having these KPIs on the highest level of the organization, you drive change across every layer of the organization. Because to have women in leadership positions, you need to have a lot of internal move coming from staff to managers. So that was really impacting the whole organization to have this KPI. So that is really doubling a positive impact. That is a key message of this program. On the next slide, you can see we have 10 KPIs in total. So we have the doubling commitments. And then on the right hand, we will continue being carbon neutral. We will continue sending zero waste to landfill. We will continue having our foundation helping us really bringing light to off-grid communities and so forth. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the details of it because the message will be a bit diluted. But what you can see also in this deck is, in this slide, is really how that links to the SDGs. So I told you at the beginning, they were like as an input to our corporate strategy, but also as an output of our program, how can we really contribute to them? And I will show you how we disclose also our contribution to the SDGs. I just want to spend a few slides on telling you or understanding a bit our doubling commitment. And so I think maybe some of you, all of you, I'm not sure, are familiar with the Paris Agreement. But basically countries signed the Paris Agreement, and there is different pathways, scenarios in which to limit the global warming. And the most ambitious of them is like, we should not raise above 1.5 degree higher scenario. And that is the most stringent scenario. And so what the Paris Agreement gives you is that basically it's a pathway depending on how much are your emissions today in your industry, how much do you need to reduce in order to be contributing to this or to be in the frame of this pathway. And for Signify, what you see on the screen, the dark line, the black line, is basically the pathway we need to follow. And by the end of 2030, this represents 2031. This is how much emissions we need to reduce. And so what we say, what we want, what we aim for is by 2025, so 6 years early, to already achieve this decrease in emissions. And what I mentioned before, it's not only emissions that we control purely from our operation, it's emission in the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So scope 3, including consumer. So how can we make sure that when you light up a light bulb in your house, your emission decrease or don't expand? And same for our suppliers. How can we make sure that all the operation in our supply chain doesn't fully increase, but how can we contribute to decreasing? And so we have different programs to ensure this emission reduction. To give you an idea, when we look at scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 of emissions, 95%, so large majority, occur in the use phase. So when our consumer light up, because it's based on the energy they consume. So it's really focusing also on how can we make our portfolio more energy efficient. Well, accelerating the transition to a circular economy, there is different bucket of product that we classify in order to measure. So we have defined like what type of product systems and services in our portfolio can contribute to a circular economy. You have serviceable luminaire, circular component, intelligent system, and circular services. Circular services is light as a service. You don't buy, or our client don't buy a light bulb, but a full service that we take care of everything. We replace, we upgrade everything that has as our client. In this, we also have the 3D printing offer, maybe you're aware of. So that's really printing made of recycled materials through the 3D manufacturing that we have across the globe. And this is, yes, summarizing a bit our double impact on society. So I talked about doubling our brutalized revenue. When you talk about food availability, is really all the lighting that we have in horticulture. So for instance, vertical farming, really contributing to higher quality of crops, aquaculture, animal-centric lighting. So chicken that will grow bigger because they have a better light and they feel the well-being is a bit better. Safety and security, this is a lot of street lighting, ensuring that the cities can be, well, it's proven that when you have better light in a city, crime reduce, but also it's through our Interact, and I have examples of connected lighting here. Health and well-being, our UVC lights proven to help with fighting COVID-19, for instance, but also human-centric lighting, and I have an example for that. Moving on, that's what I wanted to show to you. So I was thinking with Patricia about preparing this class, and I really wanted to make also the link between digitalization and driving our sustainability roadmap when it comes to our portfolio. And so I was mentioning at the beginning that from conventional, we moved to LED, and we're moving now to connected LED that can enable much more than what we think. And so we have a lot of offer for the hotel industry, and it's called Interact. That's our offer. And it's basically helping customers not only to reduce their energy consumption and therefore their bills at the end of the month, but really enhancing guest room experience. And so through this board that you can see here and through connected lighting and the technology behind it, we can enable different things. We can, of course, make sure that light is only lit up when it needs to be, that the well-being of our consumer, in this case, like the guest in the room, can tailor based on his preference the light. It can dim, so consumers so less, but that can also be generated to a central board in the hotel that can really understand like behaviors, how light is used, and to really tweak a bit for better efficiency and optimization. For instance, if a window is open in a balcony, then it can automatically detect that the heater should stop. And that will really enhance, also with the green mode, not only energy efficiency, but really like optimization of the management of the hotel. And that contributes mainly to climate action, SDG number 13. If we looked at SDG number 11, sustainable cities and communities, this is where we really want to offer the possibility to cities to be even more connected, and really having a grid through light becoming a connected, like a pole that can really help understanding behaviors in the city, red lights using really better traffic, for instance, better safety, like I mentioned previously, crime, and that can provide, like the public lighting is really becoming point for digital and network lighting. And this is really the beauty of it, is not only light, but really enable to gather data about the city and really track at the central level what is happening in the city through remote monitoring and control. I think I had a last one example. To be honest with you, I think that's my favorite product from Signify that you can see here. It's called Nature Connect. And you can see it looks like you have Velux, like top windows, but it's artificial light. And this light is connected and make sure that can follow the circadian rhythm of the day. So you go in the morning, you have a light that is a bit more vivid to wake you up. Same after lunch, when you have a dip after your lunch, that will help you doing that. That will also help, depending on what you want, you can dim differently, you can organize it, and that can help also enhance productivity, but also well-being of the people in the office. Of course, it's connected, it's LED, so it decreases energy efficiency, but that's really more about understanding and to be a human-centric lighting that can really benefit the people around. So that was the example that I wanted to share with you. And before going to the last slide, we discussed that it would be nice to tell you a bit more like the back office of everything we do. So, and I'm sorry, I realize this slide is a bit busy, but you have everything there. What I wanted to share with you is, so we have our corporate strategy where sustainability program is truly embedded in it. But when you have your target, what else? So what do you do with it? So the way it works at Signify is we have our 5-year ambitions as part of our Brighter Life, Better World 2025. We target attached, and setting up the target is an art in itself. You need to be ambitious enough, but realistic. So you need a baseline. So there is many things happening. But once you have this 5-year program, what we do is that we cut them in yearly targets. And so we have set target on a yearly basis, not only at the corporate level where it sits, but also in divisions. So in our divisions, in our market, in our business, basically, you have salespeople that have sustainability targets in their objectives. And that is how we drive really top, bottom down, really bottom up, sorry, the sustainability program. And we have then quarterly targets, of course, from a yearly, we go to quarterly. And on a quarterly level, what is important in order to drive sustainability is a sustainability governance. And so every quarter, we prepared some dashboards about how far are we or on our target, do we over exceed, or do we have, or are we lagging a bit behind? And we need to provide a bit of explanation why. And so this is presented to our leadership team and to our board of management. So every quarter, they're very well aware of every target that we have in sustainability. So that's a role of also educating on a constant basis our leadership team on these topics. And as I mentioned, growth for sustainability is one of our key frontiers, so it's one of our key focus of the whole organization. Once a year, we present this result to the highest governance body. It's the supervisory board. It's basically the boss of our CEO. We present the results, and one of the reasons why it's because very few companies have that, but we do have that at Signify, is that our bonuses, so the top executive of the company, 700 people, bonuses will depend for 25% of this bonus will depend on how good we perform on sustainability. And this is really the nerve of the war, as we can say in French, is a French expression, but it's really like if your bonuses are linked with how good we perform in sustainability for a quarter of it, everybody has an interest to make it work. And so this is also a way like how we can really drive sustainability in the organization. In terms of data management, I mentioned to you that we have 37,000 employees, global manufacturing across the globe. So the amount of data that we treat on a quarterly basis to report, look at energy or waste, like just waste. Zero waste to landfill is one of our commitments. Every site will every month tell us like where the waste went, how much it costs, all of that. So we talked about thousands of data points, and we have a very complex IT landscape to monitor this. And with all the regulations coming into place, it's going to be even more complex. But to say that we need to have a very strong and robust reporting processes, not only a reporting program, but processes behind to collect all this data and to report again this data and to understand how far are we, what needs to be done still to achieve these targets that we set to ourselves. Even more, that I don't know if you're familiar with assurance, but we produce you can see at the bottom, our annual report every year. And this annual report contains financial, but also non-financial information. All the information, claims, and data that you have in this report are verified by a third party, by an assurance provider. Our assurance provider this year is EY, and EY, what they will do to achieve reasonable assurance, which is the highest level of assurance you can get. We really check everything that you send the report. We check at the invoice level that that data point is correct. If we say we are leader in sustainability, say, okay, show me. How can you say that you're a leader? Where is the evidence? And this reasonable assurance provide really credibility to the reader, to our stakeholders, to investors, to regulators, that what we do has evidence to sustain this claim. I think, yes, that was one thing that, and it's very busy, but the point is not to read it, is just to tell you a bit more, and closing the loop on the SDGs is they are at the core of the input of how we define our strategy. And so we really wanted last year to improve the reporting. So how much do we contribute to these SDGs? And it's very tricky for corporates, because I don't know if that was mentioned in the previous presentation, but the targets that are set in the SDGs are not so relevant for businesses. Some are, but not all. And they're very much government focused. But so what we did at Signify is we look at these 6 SDGs that for us are the priority SDG, where we think we can make the biggest impact. We look at the targets and we say, okay, how do we contribute to that? So we have a qualitative information, for instance, SDG 7, we deliver energy efficient solutions through our climate action lighting portfolio, our operation run on renewable electricity, and we continue the transition to more sustainable electricity grids. Great. That's qualitative. What we wanted is like, okay, can we measure? Can we have some quantitative data point to really show progress as well? And this is where we reattached our sustainability program to have clear data points. And you can see, like in 2021, our contribution was like 100% renewable electricity in our operations. And we try to do that for all our SDGs, priority SDGs, to really report qualitatively and quantitatively on a target level. And I think that's it for me today. Just in a nutshell, yeah, sustainability, as you understood, is really at the heart of everything that we do. Our purpose, our strategy, our sales, our innovations, all our R&D is really focusing on how can we make product more sustainable, whether it's about circularity, energy efficiency, well-being, safety, all the things that I mentioned in this presentation. Digitalization technology is really an enabler in everything that we do, also for our growth for sustainability. And so that's really our ambition, is really to double our positive impact. So I'm going to pause here and see if there is any questions in the audience.